story, I just couldn't, it grabbed hold of me because I started to make sense of it, because I've talked about the myth of Jesus Christ, because that's what it was. It was a myth. They developed a myth.
But it wasn't just a method of controlling a large group of people, like you said earlier?
It's all it was. But it wasn't just about controlling them. It was setting up a society, a hierarchy, where they would live off the backbone of the rest. 10% live off the 90%. But not only that, was to experiment on them as well. To basically, the Romans had colosseums, right? Egyptians and all through the biblical era, right through up to about 1780 is the last recorded public dissection of a human being. Public dissection. No, they were petty criminals who were caught and publicly dissected while they were alive. They were the record, the objective was to see how long they could stay alive and how many bits you could remove. And they weren't given a thing. And that was recorded up until 1780. That's why the Gordon riots, Fleet Prison was brought down again, because it was a section house, and that's exactly where they used to do the public dissections. It's macabre and it's barbaric, but these people have been doing this for thousands of years. Thousands of years. And this so-called Jesus Christ was one of the instigators.
And the story that you're telling there, did you say it came from an order? And what order is that?
Order of St John of Jerusalem.
Right. And what are the origins of them?
Templar. They're Templar.
Right.
The origins are Templar, but they're not. The Templars were two different factions. Two very, very powerful factions.
Because they started in France, the Templars.
There's a lot of stories about the Templars. No, the original order of Templars go back. You're probably looking at Akhenaten's time. You're probably looking at about 3,000 years ago for the original order to start. But it was the order of Sion, the original order. The Templars
in Egypt.
Yeah. And they became, a faction of them became the Templars, and the Templars were poor knights. They were looking for something. They knew because they knew the story of what had gone on, they knew that there was things that had been lied about and stuff like that. See, Jerusalem was not where that story all went on. That wasn't where it happened. That's another massive, massive smokescreen. They created this illusion in Jerusalem and all of this. They needed to create that to take it away from the very place it did happen, because they came into the place, one end, and the other element that was needed had come in at the bottom, but they'd come in at the top. And that's why if you actually trace back the roots of the Scottish people, they come from the Picts, and if you look at the Picts and trace them back, they're Egyptian. Because that's where they moved, that is where they come. They came here. The whole thing happened on these shores, everything. Everything happened there. That's why William Blake wrote specifically, all things start and end in the Druid rocky shores called Albion. Everything starts and ends here. And it still does to this day. We control 52 countries in the world. We're the only country in the world that can change 52 countries by default. We're the only ones who can do it. No one else has the power.
Control that. I don't understand.
Commonwealth. Commonwealth.
But I thought the Commonwealth was more or less dissolved because.
No. The Queen's still a head of state in 52 other countries. And so if you go over to Australia and ask the Australians who runs their government, it's Westminster.
Yeah.
Nothing happens in Australia without Westminster, City of London knowing about it.
What's so special about this island in terms of the location?
It's strategically perfect. It's the most strategic island on the planet for access to seas, and the way that it's actually set out is perfect. That's why they India was a trading port. You know, if people don't know about the Bermuda Triangle, what the Bermuda Triangle really is, and why they made it out that things disappear when you go there. It's the slave routes. That was the route the slave ships took. It was a triangle. And the reason they don't want anyone to go in the sea down there is because what they used to do. They would pick up 600 slaves. They were lucky if when they reached port, if they had 200 left. because the
Check them on
conditions
the
are
Yeah,
board.
sure.
yeah, because the conditions are. So what they used to do is, if they had a bad time at sea, and it was all dependent on how much food they had. So if they had a real bad time and the days were backing up, and they weren't going to make port, so what they'd do is they'd take 50 slaves out of the hold. Obviously they're manacled together. They'd open the side of the ship, kick the first one off. It was obvious what's going to happen. All the way in like dominoes. Well, the point
Claim
is,
for loss, did they?
and they claim for the loss. That's absolutely right. But
Russians, Garrow's law.
Yeah, I did.
But
Sorry.
the point is,
That was really interesting, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
what did you?
Garrow's Law. It was on the other day, and it was on there, and I was really.
There's
sort
another.
of-
If you
yeah, I have to
watch
pass that.
Amistad, get a film called Amistad and watch that. That's
Amistad.
very fascinating. Now I don't know whether how true that is, but
Yeah.
that is a phenomenally fascinating film, Amistad. Well, let's kick them off. But the thing is, the sea has a unique ability at preserving things. And you ever went under there and you did enough searching about, what are you going to find? You're going to find the evidence.
Graveyard.
Absolutely, one of the biggest graveyards ever. And it is this route, and that's why it's called the Bermuda Triangle. I only knew about this because I was actually talking to a West Indian who came from that, and he told me the story. He says, we all know about it. He said, you lot don't know about it, but we know about it. There's so many stories. You have to talk to the people who live in the place. They tell you the story. They tell you the facts about things.
To go back a little bit, 'cause I'm still trying to get my head around the Order St. John and Jesus story. I suppose two questions. One is, how do you know what you were told by that order is true? And are you saying that the Roman accounts of Jesus being a historical person are not true?
Right. The first question is, I can't tell you. I know it's true. I can tell you how I feel about it.
Sure.
And
You think it is?
yeah, there's a lot of truth to it. I don't know if I'm bang on the money yet. I've got to wait. I'll just see what I can remember.
Sure.
Um,
And because there's a lot of evidence that I can't say Jesus was the Son of God or not, and a lot of people can't tell you that. But there's a lot of proof that Jesus was a historical person, and he was in the area of Jerusalem, and he did and said what he was recorded.
there's
to
a lot
say.
of historical evidence to say the reverse as well.
I disagree.
No, but the point is, if there's one historical set of records and there's another historical record set, but it's saying completely the two different things.
But
You've got to substantiate either one of them. You can't do it
seen the other
unless
evidence.
you were there.
I haven't seen the other
But
evidence. saying
even
that.
if you only take one side of it, you can't substantiate it because you weren't there.
That's
So
true,
you're
that's
accepting hearsay.
I'm
And in a court of
accepting
law,
probable
hearsay
evidence.
doesn't stand.
Is
I'm
it
afraid.
hearsay though?
But who
If
cares
you've
about the
got-
court of law anyway?
No, but it's true. That's how I. No, that's what I try and bring to
agree.
people. If you're going to bring evidence, bring me evidence. Bring me stuff that I can actually. Show me a path all the way through history, and I can go and talk to someone and say, "Was you there? Did you see it?" I can't do this, so I can't accept anything that anybody says. I'm sorry.
That's true of anything
Absolutely.
that's happened in the past, isn't it?
But what if we could remember? What if we don't need to know historical records because we might have an ancestor who was Jesus' best mate? He might know the full story, and we might be able to access his memories
How do we do that?
by forgetting all the crap that you're amounting in there. Forget to remember.
Okay, how do you do that?
The same way I do it. I'm forgetting. I promised Pearl I'd do this. I did promise, right? And I won't. If I make a promise, I try not to go back on it. I've got 3 more talks. Have I got 3 more? 3 more talks this year. I've got 2 in Wales and 1 in Eltham, and then that's it. I'm not talking anymore. I refuse, point blank. And
Where in Wales are you going?
I'm going to Ebervale, which is great. I love it because it's the Rhondda Valleys and beautiful,
So
beautiful.
why have you decided after 3 you're not going to do it?
Because it's a waste of my breath, to be quite honest with you. It really is, and it's really rude to say, and it sounds very arrogant, but it's not. I'm just worn out. I'm fed up with trying to tell people or try to be an optimist when there's so many people who are just, oh, you can't change nothing. Oh, well, what's the point then? What's the point of me keep trying to tell people and say to people and be an optimist when
But not everyone's like that you come
Yeah,
across.
but
You'll
a good
affect.
percentage.
I don't know,
A good
you'll
percent.
affect
No, I
people
want to
in
do
a
the book
positive
as well.
way
The
as well.
book